The oven door slammed shut like a coffin lid, the heat blasting my face as if it were the breath of hell itself. And I wondered, not for the first time, if this was how my brother had felt in those last, suffocating moments in Fallujah. Flour-dusted hands trembling, I wiped sweat from my brow and glanced at the clock. For 17 a.m., the witching hour when the world still slept but my ghosts were wide awake, demanding their daily tribute. That's when the phone shattered the silence, its rings slicing through the kitchen like shrapnel. "Alex? It's Marlene from Willow Creek. We lost Hargrove last night. He asked for you in his final hours." I froze, the scent of rising dough turning sour in my nostrils, because Hargrove wasn't just another face in the nursing home lineup. He was the anchor, the one who'd pulled me back from the edge after Danny's letter came, the one who'd whispered over coffee and crullers that some wars you fight with fists, others with forgiveness. Marlene's voice cracked on the line, heavy with that Midwestern politeness that masked the raw ache of loss, and I could picture her there in the dim hallway of Willow Creek Nursing Home, fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets over faded photos of crew cuts and khaki uniforms. "He said to tell you something about a debt repaid and the apple turnovers." God, Alex, he loved those apple turnovers. The drive to Willow Creek that morning blurred into a haze of frost-kissed cornfields and empty highways, the kind that stretch across Ohio like veins pumping regret straight to the heart of forgotten towns like Milford. My old Ford pickup rattled over potholes, the bed loaded with the usual haul. 24 cinnamon rolls glazed to sticky perfection, a batch of oatmeal cookies chewy as childhood promises, and those damn apple turnovers, flaky and tart, filled with Granny Smiths. I'd cord myself while humming the Marine Corps hymn under my breath. It had started 5 years ago, this ritual, me, Alex Harlan, 38, and baking my way through the grief like some half-assed therapy session. Danny's death had gutted me, left me hollow as a spent shell casing, but Willow Creek's vets? They were the shrapnel I could dig out, one pastry at a time. Pulling into the lot, gravel crunching under tires worn thin from too many dawn runs, I spotted the flag at half-mast already, rippling limp against a sky the color of gunmetal. The home squatted there on the edge of town, a squat brick building with peeling white trim and a sign out front that read Willow Creek, honoring those who served, in letters faded by too many winters. Inside, the air always smelled of antiseptic and instant coffee, undercut by the faint, comforting whiff of whatever mystery meat they were serving in the cafeteria. Marlene met me at the service entrance, her nurse's scrubs rumpled, eyes red-rimmed behind wire-rimmed glasses. She was pushing 60, built like the farm wives who'd raised her, with a hug that could squeeze the doubt out of a man. "Alex, honey?" she said, pulling me into that bare grip. "He went peaceful. Talking about you right up to the end." We shuffled into the kitchen, where the industrial fridge hummed like a distant artillery barrage, and I unpacked the goods onto the stainless steel island. The staff would divvy them up later, breakfast for the day shift, snacks for the bingo crowd. But for now it was just us, the ghosts, and the weight of unspoken stories. Marlene poured coffee from a pot that had been brewing since midnight, black as bunker fuel, and slid a mug my way. "He left something for you, in his room. Said you'd know what to do with it." Hargrove's room was down the east wing, past doors ajar to reveal men and women who'd traded foxholes for wheelchairs, their medals pinned to bathrobes like badges of a war that never really ended. Number 112. The door creaked open to a space that smelled of Old Spice and regret, sunlight slanting through blinds to spotlight a twin bed stripped bare, a nightstand holding a dog-eared Bible and a framed photo of a younger Hargrove, grinning cocky in jungle fatigues, arms slung around a buddy whose face was mercifully turned away. On the dresser sat a small wooden box, the kind soldiers carved in downtime with bayonets and boredom, latched with a simple hook, engraved on the lid in shaky script, "For the baker who fights silent wars." My fingers fumbled the latch, heart thudding like a mortar round, and inside nestled a folded letter, yellowed at the edges, postmarked 03 from some base in the sandbox. Hargrove's scrawl, or what passed for it after decades of arthritis. "Alex, you think you're the only one carrying ghosts? That recipe for the turnovers? It was Danny's. He scribbled it for me on a napkin in Kuwait, said it was his ma's secret, but we both knew it was yours. The one you two shared under that willow tree back home. He told me everything that night, how you were the anchor, the light in his foxhole. I owed him my life, and now I pay it to you. Keep baking, son. It's how we win the peace. Sergeant Hargrove. The words hit like a sucker punch, doubling me over the dresser as the room spun. Danny's laugh echoing in my skull, his calloused hand tracing flour on my cheek after we'd mixed that first batch together in my crappy apartment off base. We'd met at a VFW hall in Dayton, him fresh from boot, me slinging pies at a diner to pay for community college art classes that went nowhere. He was all fire and freckles, that Ohio farm boy grin cutting through the smoke of cheap beer and cheaper regrets. And when he leaned in that first night, whispering, "You bake like you love," like it's the only damn thing that matters. I knew I'd follow him anywhere, even into the suck, but the Corps took him, shipped him to places with names like Babel and Blood, and our letters turned from sweet nothings to desperate lifelines, until the one that came back unopened, stamped Kia in red ink that bled through the envelope like an accusation. I don't know how long I stood there, box clutched to my chest, tears carving tracks through the flour on my face, when the door swung wider and a voice drawled low, like bourbon over ice. "You must be the baker. Hargrove said you'd show up, even for a dead man." I straightened, wiping my eyes on my sleeve, and there he was, leaning in the doorway like he'd stepped out of one of Danny's old photos, broad-shouldered in a flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, jeans faded from too many miles, a V-ball cap tugged low over eyes the color of storm clouds. Mid-40s, maybe, with salt and pepper stubble that did nothing to hide the scar snaking down his jaw, the kind earned from shrapnel or a bottle, take your pick. He extended a hand, calloused and steady. "Name's Tom Riley. Just checked in yesterday." Hargrove was, well, he was the welcoming committee, even from beyond the grave. We shook, his grip lingering a beat too long, warm through the chill of the room, and something in his gaze snagged me. Recognition? Pity? Or just the shared exhaustion of men who'd lost more than they could bury? "Alex Harlan," I managed, voice rough as gravel. "I bring the goods. Helps keep the demons at bay." He nodded, like that explained everything, and glanced at the box. "Heard about that. Man collected debts like some folks collect stamps. You okay?" It was a simple question, but it landed heavy, cracking open the dam I'd built around Danny's memory. And before I could stop it, I was spilling bits and pieces anyway, about the turnovers, the willow tree, the way grief bakes itself into every crust if you let it. Tom listened, arms crossed, not interrupting, just absorbing it like a sponge, and when I trailed off, he pushed off the doorframe. "Sounds like Hargrove found his way to square the ledger. Coffee in the day room? My treat. Well, Jell-O shots, but close enough." It was a deflection, light as meringue, but I took it because what else was there? The day room was a sunlit square of vinyl chairs and card tables. TVs murmuring Fox News reruns to a handful of residents shuffling checkers or staring out windows at the skeletal oaks. Tom fetched 2 mugs from the cart. Decaf, tepid, with powdered creamer that clumped like guilt, and we settled in the corner, the box from Hargrove between us like a third wheel. He talked easy then, stories unfolding like well-worn maps. 20 years in the Corps, from Desert Storm to the Stan, medic patching up boys who looked too much like Danny. Divorced twice, no kids, Army life chews up families like bad chow. Now retired and rattling around an empty ranch in Nebraska until the doc said his ticker couldn't take the altitude anymore. Willow Creek was the compromise, close enough to Milford's VFW for Friday night poker. "Hargrove dragged me into his orbit last week, over at the hall," Tom said, stirring his mug absently. "Told me about this baker who shows up like clockwork, turning out magic in a kitchen. Said you were the real hero type. Quiet, no parades." His eyes met mine again, steady, and I felt seen in a way that prickled, like sunlight on frostbitten skin. By the time the breakfast bell clanged, we'd polished off the coffee and half a cinnamon roll I'd snuck from the tray, flaky layers yielding to sweet spice that made Tom hum approval. "These? Better than MREs on a good day." He walked me out, boots scuffing linoleum, and at the door, clapped my shoulder, firm, brotherly, but with an undercurrent that hummed like a tuning fork. "See you tomorrow, Alex? World needs more bakers." I nodded, climbing into the truck with Hargrove's box on the seat beside me, the engine coughing to life as Milford's Main Street unspooled behind me. Barbershop with its red and white pole, the diner where Danny proposed over burnt toast, the hardware store where I'd bought the rolling pin we'd christened together. Back home, the bakery waited. A converted garage behind my shotgun rental. Walls papered in yellowed recipes and Polaroids of Danny in dress blues, grinning like he owned the world. I stashed the box under the counter, next to the dog tags I'd worn for a year after the funeral until they chafed my chest raw, and fired up the ovens again. Orders wouldn't bake themselves. Wedding cakes for the mayor's daughter, pies for the church social. But my mind snagged on Tom. His scar, his laugh like distant thunder, the way he'd listened without pity. It had been years since anyone looked at me like that, not as the widower baker, but as Alex, the guy who still dreamed in color. That night, sleep dodged me like an enemy patrol, the letter replaying in loops. Danny's recipe, our secret shared under that willow, branches drooping like tears over the creek where we'd first kissed, tentative and tasting of creek water and possibility. I'd been 22, him 24, both of us green as spring grass, and when he shipped out, I'd promised to wait, with the bakery as my foxhole, though my ammunition. Letters flew like flares. Miss your hands in the flour, babe. Tastes like home here. Until the silence. Then the knock from the chaplain. His widow's peak gleaming under porch light as he handed over the folded flag. Dawn broke gray and grudging, pulling me back to the kitchen where the mixers whirred like old friends. I doubled the turnover batch, coring apples with vicious twists, each slice a small exorcism. By 7 a.m., the truck was loaded heavier than usual. Extras for the new guy? Marlene had texted. The residents always rallying around fresh blood. Willow Creek's lot was busier today. Cars from families who'd heard about Hargrove. But I slipped in the back way, trays balanced like offerings. Marlene waved me through, her smile tight. Tom's already asking after you. Said something about trading war stories for seconds. The kitchen buzzed with aides portioning oatmeal, but Tom was there at the island, sleeves rolled higher, revealing a tattoo on his forearm. A compass rose inked in faded black, north pointing true but scarred at the edges. Morning baker, he called, voice warm as fresh-baked bread. Heard you were the cavalry. We fell into rhythm easy. Him slicing the turnovers while I plated rolls, banter flowing like yeast in warm milk. He had stories, all right. The time he'd stitched a buddy's gut wound with dental floss in a sandstorm. The hooch girl in Saigon who'd taught him to swear in Vietnamese. I countered with bakery disasters. A cake that collapsed mid-wedding. The time a possum got into the flour bins and turned dough gray as mud. Felt normal, dangerous, that normalcy, like stepping onto thin ice over a lake you drowned in once. But Tom's laugh pulled me across, deep and unforced, and when our hands brushed passing a knife, neither of us flinched. You ever think about getting out of this town? He asked, casual as wiping countertops. See the world beyond corn and casseroles? I shrugged, plating the last cookie. World took enough from me. This is my outpost now. His eyes softened, that storm cloud gray clearing to blue. Fair. But outposts need reinforcements. Dinner sometime? My treat. Real food. Not this institutional slop. I said yes before my brain caught up, the word hanging between us like sugar dust in sunlight. As I loaded the empties, he slipped a napkin into my pocket. His number scrawled in block letters, underlined twice. Driving home, radio crooning Springsteen about ghosts in the heartland. I felt the first crack in the armor. Not pain, but possibility, fragile as phyllo dough. The week blurred into a pattern I'd never admit I craved. Dawn bakes bleeding into deliveries, Tom's face waiting like a bookmark in the day room or kitchen. Our talks stretching from coffee to lunch, then dusk walks around the home's overgrown garden, where roses clung stubborn to November's chill. He was easy company. Sharp wit honed on barracks bullshit, a quiet strength that didn't demand space but filled it anyway. Gay? The signs were there if you knew to look. The way his gaze lingered on my hands, flower-kissed and steady. The offhand story about a roommate in San Diego who'd kept the loneliness at bay. The pride pin tucked discreetly on his cap's underside, winking like a secret handshake. We didn't name it, not yet, that pull like gravity between two satellites long in orbit alone. Instead, we traded histories in fragments. My art school dropout days, sketching Danny's profile in charcoal until the pages tore. His discharge after a roadside bomb took his leg below the knee. prosthetic hidden under boot and bluff. Doc said I'd walk again, he said one afternoon, propped on a bench amid fading mums. But running? That's for kids and fools. I wanted to ask about the loves lost in foxholes, the men who'd come and gone like rotations, but the words stuck, baked hard in my throat. Friday brought poker night at the VFW, Tom insisting I tag along. Hargrove's ghost would haunt me otherwise. The hall smelled of stale beer and fryer grease. Walls papered in yellowed clippings of local boys come home in boxes. Vets clustered around felt tables, cigars clamped in teeth, dealing hands with the precision of loading clips. Tom fit seamless, slapping backs and trading barbs, but he pulled a chair for me at his table, his knee brushing mine under the bays like an accident that wasn't. Play or watch, Harlan? Losers on dish duty. I played badly, folding early on bluffs that screamed novice. But the laughter came easy, loosening knots I'd carried since Danny's flag-draped casket. Tom won a pot on a straight flush, crowing modest, then cashed out to buy rounds. Whiskey neat for the old salts, ginger ale for me, his thumb grazing my glass as he passed it. To debts repaid, he toasted, eyes locking mine, and the room narrowed to just us, the din fading to a hum. Later, under neon buzz of the parking lot lamps, he walked me to my truck, gravel crunching soft. You're good people, Alex. Hargrove was right. The air hung crisp, stars pricking the velvet sky, and when he leaned in, not fast, not presuming, just enough to test the current, I met him halfway. His kiss was salt and smoke, tentative at first, then deepening like dough rising slow, hands framing my face with a gentleness that belied the calluses. We broke apart breathless, foreheads touching, his whisper rough. Been a long time since I felt like fighting for something. Me too, I admitted, the words a confession, and drove home with his taste lingering, heart pounding like it hadn't since Danny's last leave. That night, I pulled out the box, reread the letter by lamplight, and for the first time it didn't gut me. It mended, stitch by careful stitch. But peace is a lie soldiers tell themselves between patrols, and mine shattered on a Tuesday, 2 weeks into whatever this was blooming between Tom and me. I'd upped the baking, heart-shaped scones slipped into his tray, notes folded inside like love letters from boot camp, and he'd started lingering after deliveries, helping load the truck, his prosthetic no hindrance to the work. We'd stolen dinners at my place. Pot roast from his ma's recipe, served with wine that loosened tongues and tightened grips. Nights ending in slow explorations that honored the scars more than hid them. That morning, the sky hung low and bruised, threatening snow, and Willow Creek felt heavier, the halls echoing with Hargrove's absence. I wheeled in the cart, pecan pies for the holiday prep, sticky buns glazed high, and found Tom in the kitchen, back to me, staring at a turnover like it held state secrets. Marlene bustled by, muttering about med calls, leaving us alone in the steam and spice. Hey, soldier, I said, sliding up beside him, hip bumping his playful. Save some for the others. He turned, smile not reaching those eyes, and held up the pastry half-eaten. This filling Granny Smith's, right? With a hit of clove. I nodded, puzzled, as he set it down deliberate. Danny's favorite. Used to rave about it in letters home. The name hung there, casual as a grenade with the pin half pulled, and my world tilted, the floor dropping out. What did you say? Tom's jaw tightened, scar pulling white. Knew him, Alex. 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines. We rotated in together '04. He was the one who taught me that recipe. Said it was from his guy back home, the baker who'd wait forever. His voice cracked then, raw as exposed wire. Christ, I didn't know it was you. Not till Hargrove's letter, the pieces. God, Alex, I'm sorry. Sorry? The word ricocheted, splintering memories. Danny's handwriting on that napkin, now ash in my mind, passed hand to hand through hell. You rotated in? With him. My voice was a whisper, fists clenching around the cart handle till knuckles blanched. Tom nodded, slow, like confessing to friendly fire. He was my spotter. Saved my ass more times than I count. That last patrol ambush in Fallujah. AD took the Humvee ahead, shrapnel everywhere. Danny shoved me clear, took the brunt. I held him, Alex. Whispered your name so he'd go easy. But the dust-off chopper was too late. The kitchen spun, stainless steel gleaming accusatory, and I backed away, the cart rattling like bones. You held him, and you never said. Betrayal burned hot, not just the omission but the theft. The years I'd mourned alone, while this man, this almost love, carried the last breath of my heart in his pocket like spare change. I came here to heal Tom, not to find his ghost in your goddamn eyes. He reached, desperate, but I jerked free. Wait, please. I didn't know. After I shipped stateside, leg gone, head fucked. Buried it deep like we all do. Hargrove pulled the story out over poker. But by then, you'd walked in and it was like fate's cruel joke. I wanted to tell you. But how? Hey, your boyfriend died in my arms over scones. Out. I choked, storming past, the door banging behind me like a rifle bolt. Outside, sleet lashed the lot, soaking through my jacket as I hurled trays into the truck bed, pies splattering mud like blood on canvas. Drove blind, tears mixing with rain, straight to the willow by the creek. Our spot, branches barren now, but the ground still held echoes. I collapsed against the trunk, sobbing the ugly sobs that hollow the chest, Danny's face superimposing on Tom's, accusations flying silent. Why didn't you fight harder? Why'd you let him go? Hours later, phone buzzing ignored. Marlene, probably, or Tom. I dragged home to an empty bakery, ovens cold as regret, paced the floor till midnight, replaying it all. The kiss under stars, his hand in mine over cards, the way he'd murmur stay after lovemaking, voice thick with unspoken pleas. Betrayal, yes, but layered, mine for not asking deeper, his for surviving when Danny didn't. Dawn crept in, gray as defeat, and I baked anyway, mechanical, a pie crust lattice like bars on a cell. Willow Creek loomed that afternoon. A summons I couldn't dodge. Marlene's text. Tom's asking, don't make me medicate him. I went, trays light, heart heavier, and found him in the garden, bundled on that bench, staring at nothing. He looked up, wrecked, eyes shadowed, stubble silver in the weak sun. Alex, I fucked up. Should have led with the truth. I sat, distant, the space between us a minefield. Truth? Which one? The medic who held my world dying? Or the man who kissed me like it could rewrite the ending? He winced, prosthetic leg tapping, anxious. Both. All of it. Danny, he talked about you constant. Alex's turnovers'll fix the world. He'd say, even when we were knee-deep in shit, made me believe in second chances, you know? Then I lost him, lost myself. Came here thinking I'd fade quiet. But you baked your way in. Made me remember why we fight. Words tangled then, accusations flying. You stole his last words. I gave him peace, until exhaustion dropped us silent. Sleet turning to snow, blanketing the roses white. His hand found mine, tentative, and I didn't pull away. I can't unhear it, Tom. The image. It's poison. I know. His thumb traced my knuckles, gentle. But poison's got antidotes. Let me be yours? Not replacement, companion. We carry him together, yeah? Bake the turnovers, tell the stories. Honor the debt. It wasn't absolution, not yet. Too raw, the wound suppurating. But in that garden, snow falling soft as forgiveness, I saw the humanism Hargrove preached. Not erasing scars, but weaving them into something stronger. We stood, arms linked, and walked inside. The promise of dough waiting. A new recipe unfolding slow. The holidays hit like a barrage. Willow Creek decked in tinsel and false cheer. But Tom and I navigated it deliberate, like D miners charting safe paths. Dinners became ritual. My kitchen his outpost, him chopping onions while I rolled dough, stories spilling freer now. Danny's laugh at a botched pie. Tom's first crush on a base barber who'd trimmed more than hair. Nights blurred into mornings, bodies entwining with a reverence that mended cracks. His whispers against my skin, a litany of here, now, us. But conflict brewed subtle, a riptide under calm. Whispers from the VFW crew. Riley's got a ghost tailing him. And Marlene's worried glances, her hand on my arm one shift. He's solid, Alex, but war leaves tripwires. You sure? I was mostly until Christmas Eve when Tom's past detonated proper. We'd planned quiet. Tree in my living room, strung with dog tags and lights, turkey roasting slow. He arrived early, gift in hand, a carved box like Hargrove's, but etched with a willow branch. "For your recipes," he said, voice thick, and we kissed under mistletoe I'd hung ironic, the world narrowing to heat and heartbeat. Then the knock, insistent, shattering the bubble. Door opened to a woman, mid-40s, bundled in a parka. Eyes Tom's but softer. A boy of 10 clinging to her leg. "Thomas?" she said, accent Nebraska flat. "Your sister's gone into labor early. Docs say it's touch and go. She asked for you." The boy stared, wide-eyed, nephew, unmentioned, and Tom's face drained white, the scar livid. Shit, Laura, I can't." But she cut him sharp. "Can't what? Run again? After Dad's funeral, the divorce? Family's all we got left, Tom. And that boy there? He needs his uncle, ghosts be damned." It was betrayal's echo, not mine but his, secrets stacked like undeclared munitions. The no kids a lie to shield his wreckage. He glanced at me, pleading, but I stepped back, the carved box heavy in my palm. "Go," I said, voice steel. "Family first. Always was." He left in a whirl of apologies and snow, truck fading into night, leaving me with the turkey's ghost and a tree that mocked Mary. Paced till dawn, anger fermenting. How many layers to peel before truth? Danny's death I'd forgiven piecemeal, but this willful blindness to blood ties felt like sabotage, undermining the foundation we'd needed together. Christmas morning found Willow Creek a madhouse of carols and candy canes. Residents in Santa hats swapping yarns over eggnog. I delivered late, mechanical, avoiding the day room where Tom held court with the boy on his lap. Laura's thanks brittle as gingerbread. Our eyes met across the chaos. His raw mind shuddered and he mouthed talk. But I shook my head, fleeing to the kitchen where Marlene cornered me, arms crossed. "Boy's hurting, Alex. War took his leg, but shame took his spine. That sister's his last tether. Abusive ex. Preemie on the way." He ghosted him thinking he'd spare the pain. She squeezed my shoulder. "You gonna let ghosts win this round?" The question gnawed through shifts, baking into New Year's. Pies for the gala, each crust a crossroads. Tom texted sparse. "She's stable." Boy asks about the baker. And I replied curt, "Walls up." But the garden called one dusk, snowdrifts sculpting benches white. And there he waited, breath clouding. A pie tin in mittened hands. Apple, clove spiced, perfect. "Truce," he offered, voice cracking. I took the tin, warmth seeping through, and we sat, the silence pregnant as the sleet that fell. "I ran because I break things, Alex. Danny knew, called me out on it that last patrol. Don't let the suck define you, Riley." But I did. Hid from Laura after the blast, from the family that saw me whole once. You're the first to make me want fixed." Tears froze on my lashes. The pies sent unlocking floods. Danny's, Tom's, mine intertwined. We all break, Tom. Question is, do we rebuild solo or shoulder to shoulder? He pulled me close, snow muffling sobs. And in that embrace, climax crested. Not explosion, but release. The past shattering to reveal future's gleam. Spring thawed us slow, Milford greening tentative, the willow budding pink. Tom shuttled weekends to Nebraska, me tagging once. Meeting Laura's wary smile, the nephew's sticky-fingered hugs over scones. Willow Creek thrived on our story. Vets trading winks over turnovers. Marlene presiding like a proud aunt. Romance deepened, humanistic in its grit. Arguments over recipes, too much nutmeg. Quiet nights tracing scars, vowing to carry loads shared. One June dawn, under the willow heavy with leaves, Tom knelt. Not dramatic, just him, rings simple gold and asked, "Build with me, Alex? Past, present, all." I said yes, tears salting the kiss, because some debts aren't repaid. They're redeemed, baked into every layer of what comes next. And so I bake on, for Willow Creek's ghosts and glories. The ovens roar a hymn to love's lost and found. The past shattered, yes, but from shards we forge whole.